Yeah. I started recording. Avoid legal snacks by telling people they've been recorded. Okay, so, sir, you have been recorded now, but even if I wouldn't tell you you have been recorded, you would still, I think, would be recorded because everything is recorded. If
This
you
is a
take
surveillance
enough,
state, man. This is a surveillance state. The police
yeah,
state has arrived now. The reality reset is real.
yeah. So, what about that? Some people worry too much about them being recorded, but at the same time, they live a life of very shallow existence by, having 9 to 5 job and having like uh, I don't know, very controlled kind of existence, even outside of their recording like lives. I mean, what I'm trying to say is that sometimes we worry about the potential like dangers, but we living very kind of how you say risky life themselves because we don't ourselves in life, like we have like a boss we need to please, we have like things
Yeah.
worry about, like whatever you pay for your education, whatever you have so many problems in life. Why we think that that people can spy on us is very.
I don't think necessarily that way. Let me first start with something totally different. So let me first say that the Altica chat, let us forget about the stream itself, just the Altica chat by itself, and the
Yeah.
community around that, and also your stream, man. It's magical. You just have to keep doing
Oh,
it.
come
So
on, fuck off. Why you just have to say that? You just have to say that
yeah,
because you read.
I'm being paid. I'm being paid to say this. I have to advertise it as well.
No,
So
you just.
I get paid
Uh,
in rubles.
yeah.
But no. So let me.
You like.
That was just a
Do
preface to
you,
what.
what do
So
you like most about my streams, for example? What is it
I think
so interesting
I
there?
think the whole circumstance, like you have this nanoparticle shit going around. The world is totally screwed.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's a new age, and then people, total random strangers, they come together. They listen to good music, and they just talk shit, and they listen to rumba tumba, boom booms, whatever.
Yeah.
And there is no identity. Like there's just like this random shit online, right? And that I think it's bringing people closer together in a sense.
But I think there is a very significant identity in what we are doing because it is all based on common value of certain things. And if you bring people, the problem with criminal system, for example, is that if you bring all the bad guys together in one place, they will become stronger because they will know each other and they will just like cooperate.
Yeah, but
This is just I think this is just one of those moments when we all know, like, man, I'm doing this for 5 or more years. All my friends are sick of me and of hearing about this radio show. They think I'm crazy, which I am, but they think it's going nowhere.
but you have an
And
audience in you have an audience in Russia. You have some people listening in, or
yeah, I have a lot.
is it just the 5 people in Altica chat?
Nah, it's just like it's not an audience, but it's like all my friends. I tell them about it every day. It's just like I'm not talking to them like, "Hello, how you doing? How is your wife?" I'm just saying, "Okay, I'm doing radio," and this is maximum what I'm going to say to them. So they just think I'm spamming them, but I just that's just me. I'm not talking to people like I'm talking to you because honestly it's interesting to me. I don't give a shit about like how it's going to like globally what is everything. It's not my
Yeah, I
idea
fully
of
agree. I fully
world.
agree. It's yeah. I don't think anyone that does anything meaningful should be worried about how many other people are gonna appreciate it in the sense. I don't think people like Autiker worry too much about how other people will feel about their work. So in a sense,
Yeah,
if only 5 people listen to the album, I don't think they give a shit. They just make
but
it
I think,
because they
I
have
think,
to make it.
I think they worry because they have already a big following. But they worry in a sense, I think, because they have to work a lot to satisfy this audience in one way or another. I mean, if you
That's
try
not
to
true
like,
because if you look at Boards of Canada, for example, they have a huge audience and they don't bring out shit. Like they've bring. I have a bit of a controversial point concerning Boards of Canada. Like they had 2 or 3 good albums, and then they coasted on the same sound. They never innovated too much. And they have a huge fan base, and they can go 20 years without bringing out an album. They will still be huge. I think Autarky would be the same. If they stopped right now for 10 years, they said like, well, 1.6 is the last thing ever, and you have to wait 15 years to get the next thing. People will just like them even more, probably.
yeah, but your point is that they don't have to do anything. They just can produce whatever they want, and it is going to be popular, right?
Yeah,
But
they can
if
they
you're
can
going to
bring out a
produce
track
songs,
like All End. They can bring out a track like All End for like an hour of drones, and they will have an audience for that. Like people will listen to it. Some people, other people will
yeah,
complain it's not Amber, but yeah.
yeah. I mean, Amber's bullshit compared to this, I think.
Yeah.
Anyway, yeah,
Anyway,
maybe.
let me go back to the surveillance state. So
But I actually met them, and I didn't met Boards of Canada, but I met Otikar. So what I know about work ethics of Otikar, it is nothing like this because what you are explaining is your outside perspective.
yeah,
But what I know is that there is a lot of complexity involved because the product going to be public, not because it is like uh, for the impression to impress you or me, but because at the end of the day, you make something that will be end up in the long range of events. You produce the record, it could be your last record, you never know, you can die tomorrow, something
yeah.
fall from the sky, you get a thunderstorm, you get car accident, you get poisoned, everything can happen. So there is a lot of stress in doing this kind of shit for these reasons, because it's one thing for me to do like a radio show. For you, I truly don't give a shit. I mean,
But you
at the
think your
bottom,
radio show would be different if you had 1,000 listeners?
of course, it's going to be so stressful. I'm not sure I would be able to survive this, because I don't want to talk to 2,000 people, to be honest. I want to talk to 5 people, because my intention is not about the thinking for the money. I think, I mean, I like people pay me, okay, I'm going to be very happy. I'm not going to bullshit you and say like, oh, I'm so independent artist. I like, okay, people want to pay me money for this, okay, they can pay. I'm going to spend this money very happily. But when I do it for the small collective of people, I can do it like I myself could do. But if it's going to be 1,000 people, I have to think a lot. This is going to be a huge problem for me. I would think about, because some things I play, I know the people will never find out what it was. If I play for 1,000 people, like Otikar doing radio show, they got screwed all the time. They can't even do Twitch because Twitch just banned them. You get 30 people on Twitch, and Twitch going to ban you for copyright reason on the bullshit pretense that there is some fragments of
But
advertisement.
that's just logistics because they could Warp could perfectly
But
well set up a server so that they could just set up a server and just stream
yeah,
video,
but
right?
not. It's I think for them it's not going to happen. They too big. It's
Yeah.
not, they're not going to have a server. It's I can do a server, or you can, or I don't know. Some small person. This is the benefit of being small in life. When you're small, you have a controlled risks in life. They don't have controlled risks. They can do what they want to the extent. Sean don't even have permission to put his name on some record that he collaborated with. I
Yeah,
mean,
I read that.
there
Yeah.
is there is there is a lot of restrictions in life, and these restrictions they're not going away ever. So of course they have a lot of troubles producing all this. It's not might be troubles on creative side, but what you call logistics, it's not easy. I mean, not saying that everything they release you can download for
you mean
free.
purely from a copyright point of view, right?
Not only copyright. I mean the whole thing that people pay you for this. It give
But
you.
you really think
less.
that Autechre is creatively restrained by this?
Well, of course, it's Warp controls everything. I think if Otakar will be like, independent artist without a label, it's going to be better. It's my like perspective. I think now label doesn't do much. I mean, just profit, and I think if you don't have a boss, it's very simple. If you don't have a boss, your own boss. If you have a publisher, you're not your own boss. Your publisher ultimately have control. Okay, this publisher might be your friend. He can say you can do whatever you want, but still, it doesn't mean that at the end of the day he can't come to you and say, okay, man, we can't do it like this. We can do it like this. He might not say it like this. I mean, he might say, can you, think about it somehow different? But the message ultimately is the same. If you have a label behind you, you have less freedom than if you would do it on your own. Or if you have enough money, for example, if Sean would be like an oil Arab prince and he will have $1 billion, you think his relationship with Warp would be the same if he would be now like?
No, he would own Warp, probably.
Yeah, he will do what he wants. He can buy Warp. He can, publish his radio shows. I don't know, vinyl press all 1,000 hours of radio show. He can do what he wants. But it's not like this. In the world we're living now, of course, every big corporation control output of everybody. Now artists can say, oh, it's not really, we have a great relationship. But all great relationships are to a point of great relationship. They're not great by themselves. The only great so far is the fragility of the situation go. One day you wake up, it's like we have a risk with Google, we have a risk with all the big corporation. We think they have some kind of common good, they produce it, but they not plan to do it for these reasons. They have other reasons. We don't know these reasons. One day we wake up, the reasons will be visible. It can be good reasons, it can be bad reasons. But ultimately, I don't want these risks. I mean, I'm a client of Google. I'm trying to use Facebook shit. I'm not impressed by Facebook, by anything. But still, I understand perfectly well that I'm just renting their services to a point. One day there will be, a situation when they're going to screw. It's inevitable.
You're already screwed. This will probably bring us to what we wanted to discuss, right? So like, they already own what they want. It's not at some point in the future they will ask you for money or anything. I think it's what they are in the business of is generating data, and that data is very valuable in a sense that they can use it to make predictions or to sell it to advertisers and stuff like that. So I think, in a sense, you're already but just subscribing to the system and using it, you're already selling whatever they want to have. And to go back to your point of the surveillance thing, so like, I don't think people realize that their individual data is not that valuable. Like, it's more the aggregate of data across many data points that is actually the valuable resource. So nobody will, unless you want to become like the president of the United States or something like that, where they can go back into your history and point out everything that you did wrong. Or like if you're a celebrity and you tweet something wrong, stuff like that matters. But all your different likes on Facebook, they are predictive, but they're not really interested in what you are going to do. They're interested in what the population of people will do that have similar data characteristics as you are. And I think that's one of the problems with the surveillance state of these companies, right? But it's not an individual risk, I would say. It's more like a collective risk.
Yeah, but what is the risk exactly? I mean, okay, you have a lot of data about collective behavior.
Well, it has been proven that Facebook, for example, if you only have 15 to 20 likes, like if you have data of 15 to 20 likes, you can predict quite a bit of that person. Yeah. And then
with Hillary Clinton shit, for example, they predict Hillary Clinton going to win with a big landslide over the Trump. Yet all this data wasn't correct. So why do you think you have like a situation in the future when the same scenario cannot happen?
We haven't really seen the data because that data is not really publicly available. So the data that you're referring to are probably polls that they do of random samples of population, and those polls are really biased in a way that the way that they sample these people is not representative of how voter turnout will be, or like which people are more likely to go on that day to vote and stuff like that. So I think
Okay, so
if you would have Facebook data, you would have like a lot of people predicted this based on sentiment data via Twitter and stuff like that. So there were correct predictions being done on that election as well.
Tell me one thing. I'm not going to argue because I'm not a guy who have enough understanding of the field. But I want to know theoretically and philosophically, what is your background for your way of approaching this thing? Besides that, you're professional in it. I mean, what material?
I'm a university professor of statistical genetics.
Oh yeah.
And I also do computational biology and bioinformatics. So I work mainly in the medical data analysis and genomic data analysis and stuff like that. And I use machine learning and statistics all the time. So I see the world in a probabilistic sort of way. And I understand highly dimensional data sets. So I work in molecular biology. We have very highly dimensional data sets in a sense that we measure many different things about many different objects at the same time. So it's very similar to how you would look at social media data of millions of people, for example. And usually when you data mine that thing, you're interested in global trends to make predictions. You're not really interested in the individual data points. You're looking at what are global trends in the data that you can use to make future predictions. And in that sense, I think that's and the discussion that we had last time about does big data matter, and if you have more data, can you make more accurate predictions of the future? And I think that's you can mathematically prove through the central limit theorem that just says that if you increase your sample size, your estimates of your parameters will always be better. And that works for statistics, but that works as well for complex neural networks, such as the ones that are being used right now in deep learning and stuff like that. So the more data points you have, the better you'll be able to fit any model that you want. And the closer your parameters will be to the real parameters that you fit. But so in that sense, more data will always give you better predictions. The question that we had was more philosophical, that does having better is having better predictions always worth it, right? So do we
does it help you to survive at the end of the day? Do you want a lot of neural networks to work for you, or you have a bigger problems? For example, I mean, if you go back to surveillance, there is surveillance, but there is bigger problems with your wife maybe sometimes than with surveillance state. Of course, in the future, surveillance is going to be worse. But will you survive to the future when surveillance is going to be worse? My point is that probably we're not going to make it too far to the point when neural networks will be good enough to solve problems that going to need to be solved. And we have a lot of like philosophical complications as a human beings that will not be able to be solved by the data. That's why I'm asking about your kind of I understand the science.
What do you consider these problems? Like, what are some of the problems that you consider will not be solved?
I think I was talking to Nix, and the worst enemy of the human is not a computer. I mean, we can train the computer, but I think that unpredictability of another human being and cruelty of his behavior will be always like a bigger problem. So, for example, if we are worried about the global surveillance state, it's not going to be big brothers that go after you. It might be your small, pet owner next door or whatever. And the general mystery of it is just that, the world we are living today, it might be interconnected, but still we are very we're not going to be able to backtrack everything by the time it's going to be needed. It's not going to be relevant anymore. I understand that you got your money from some kind of organizations that are built their kind of general philosophy around this like data concepts. But it's like we are going to a bar, we have a sit down with guys, and they all have their own concept about things as well. Everybody have, it's just a power struggle for me at this point. You have organizations that, okay, biology, statistics, I understand, very important. If you do in common good, it's very important. I just don't agree with the generalization of it. For example, I have my own ideas about something, but my own ideas are not sponsored, so it's like honorable for me to stand behind them. Once you start saying like you saying right now, in the framework of some bigger macro view of the world, it's very easy to just bullshit about it, because we will not be able to prove anything at this point in time. We only rely to your expertise. I'm not trying to fight you with your expertise. I want to believe that you're doing very good job, but still it would be foolish for me to trust you on your prediction, especially if I have my own kind of intuitive understanding of the things in life.
But I think you should always be critical of any prediction, because any prediction is probabilistic in a sense.
What is your problem with Taleb? Okay, tell me. Okay,
I think Taleb overestimates. His whole argument is that, from what I read from Taleb, and I still remember, which is a while ago. So what his argument is that most of the high effect size events, and this can be economic crisis or wars or stuff like that, stuff that have huge impacts on society, that these are usually caused by very rare events. So, for example, you have some extremely freak of nature combination of events happening. You have a drought in Afghanistan, and the price of bread drops, whatever, and that creates some sort of situation which escalates some sort of local situation, and then creates this group of terrorists, and these terrorists create a terrorist attack, and then you have all these consequences which are difficult to predict at that sense. And therefore, a lot of the world-shaping events are rare events that you cannot predict. And that's true in a sense, but we are actually pretty good at, in some other fields, we're actually pretty good at being able to model rare events quite effectively. So, for example, in disease models, we are able to model very rare mutations, for example, which you would not expect statistically to happen, but we can predict what their effect will be on the long term. And I think these sort of things are difficult for economics, because economics are very or large macro scale human stuff, because it's very complicated, multidimensional problems for which we don't have really good data. But for very concrete examples, this really does work. So for example, like take self-driving cars.
Yeah, okay.
It's not unimaginable that a self-driving car will encounter a situation which is extremely rare in real life, right? That will only happen once in a lifetime or once every 100 years or so. That doesn't mean that you cannot train your car with a model that is actually able to tackle that very rare situation.
Yeah, but it's not it's not factual statement. It's just that you work on something and you see the possibility of it, but it's still a long range. We have like what? Self-driving car now that can go from San Francisco to whatever, to Chicago, on the special type of road, on the special destination, right? We don't have self-driving car.
But if you look at the progress, in the field and the literature, we're 5 to 10 years out for having a complete solution.
Yeah, I personally don't believe this, but
look at chess and go. Look at chess and go. So
yeah,
chess
I know,
and go
yes.
are much more restricted dimensional space. So the possibilities that you're able to do in chess and go are relatively small compared to driving cars or whatever. but still the computer, the algorithm manages, given enough data and given enough training, manages to come up with solutions to problems which people cannot even solve. And that shows you the predictive power of these algorithms. Like they can look into the future much more than a human would ever will. And in that sense, maybe we're not there yet that it can produce every time the single best perfect game or whatever, but at some point it will have such tremendous training data that it will just reach that level.
I think the problem with the chess as analogy to this, or the Go, or whatever game you have, is that you have much less degrees of freedom in the game than you have in life. So again, I'm saying this as
But that's a computational problem. That's a purely computational problem. So as you scale computation, you can scale up the sort of problems that you do. So for example, chess and Go takes quite a bit of computation, but imagine that you wanted to model, I don't know, let's take, what's a good example of something slightly more complicated?
Maybe some motor or whatever that goes certain motion. You need like reduce the tension there or whatever.
Yeah,
You can.
Just the higher dimensional space, the more data you will need, and that's it. That's and more computation that you will need. That's all. And as computation scales up, we can tackle more and more problems this way. At some point, the complexity of the problem becomes so huge that we don't have resources to compute that much, I think. And that's a physical limitation, but it's not a theoretical limitation.
But do you think in the time you are alive in this, okay, so next 60 years it is possible
why not?
have a computer that will be able to solve the general problems of today? For example, food. You have food in abundance in one place in Moscow, but you didn't have food in Siberia. Yet computer can computate the optimal amount of food to each citizen, and you have a lot of food for everybody everywhere, right? Kind of problems.
That's probably a relatively simple problem. It's just a political problem.
It's not solvable in this. I mean, you can physically.
Amazon, for example, does their logistics completely data driven. So they know perfectly well where they have to store each product in which warehouse and how to do the logistics between their stuff, completely based on data. And that's just a logistics. That's just a political problem between countries. If you wanted to solve for food, I guess. But the logistics of that are much better managed by an AI than they would ever be by a human.
Yes, I disagree, but do you think it would be possible to have like a meeting between one president of the country and another president, and they will agree because they have an algorithm that will produce the report that it's going to be better for both of them to collaborate on this and to share something between each other, and in the long range it will produce more like for them, or even on the short range, and they will going to shake hands based on this data? You think it's possible?
I think the problem there is another big problem in machine learning right now, but is being worked on. So now you have these very complex algorithms, mostly neural network based, that produce predictions, and they usually tend to outperform humans at some level for some tasks. And the question is, how do you tell the algorithm to convince you of that? So like, what we need now is basically a neural network on top of the neural network that takes that prediction and tries to explain it to you in a way that you will understand it and that you will agree with its course of action.
Okay, look, I have like idea, because you have like Amazon, for example, that will need like Amazon already use some sophisticated technological advances, but at the end of the day, okay, say you need a new dishwasher, whatever, and you go to Amazon, but you're not a computer scientist like you're just a normal person. You say you became like a horse breeder, so you go to Amazon and
you're a Lithuanian cow farmer.
Yeah, whatever. You go and optimal dishwasher there, and you want to buy it, but you think, oh, it might be too expensive for me today. I might as well go back in the week and see again if I want it or not. And you have your wife. Yeah. If your wife came, you at your rancho, you just milking cows, whatever. Your wife came to you, she say, we need a dishwasher because our, dishwasher didn't work. You're not going to eat, whatever. It will take your wife, without complicated algorithm, a lot less time to make you do something than if you have two neural networks working on the same problem. So my point is, we already solve most of the problems that, data science try to solve. And the only way we're going to make data science work if we didn't have our own degrees of freedom enough to make decisions. Now, if you're going to wait what you want more, your wife or the neural network, I'm sorry, I'm still going with the wife. Even if it's going to be very sophisticated neural network, it's just much more pleasant. And
at the same why not have both? You can have your wife and the neural network.
Yes, but then you didn't be able to sell neural network privileges to make decisions. On which basis you're going to have give the network to freedom to decide. Okay, you can,
but you don't want the neural network to decide. You just want the neural network to be your assistant, right? So you want it to.
Then your self-driving car will not be self-driving. If you have to drive it at certain point, it's not self-driving. It's semi-self.
No, you want the self-driving. So the analogy for self-driving cars is you want the self-driving car to drive you where you want, but you don't want it to decide where you want to go, right? You want to decide that yourself.
No, I mean drive safe from point A to point B. Okay.
But if I can convince you that the self-driving car is much safer to drive than you would ever be able to drive, it's much more the self-driving car is the Lewis Hamilton of drivers. Let's say that. So it's the best driver on Earth. I can show you conclusively based on performance stats that that's the case. And then you have the choice, like I will drive my car myself or I will let the AI drive. As long as the AI doesn't tell you what to do, it's fine, right?
This is exactly the problem that only theoretically is possible. Of course, this is more preferable to be safe. But what you are doing now, you make theoretical problem that will not happen ever. Yes, it's like playing chess. No, people don't play chess versus supercomputer. They just theoretically prove that supercomputer far superior in calculation than they still play chess with each other.
People don't play chess against Alpha. What is the chess computer called again? Like Alpha Star or whatever.
There is some many.
So people don't play against that because it's no fun to play against. It's not fun to play against.
It's not going to be the choice of do you drive with the Uber driver or do you drive with supercomputer. It's simply going to be supercomputer. But the point, my point is, it's only in the macro vision we can try to operate this kind of decisions. They're not going to happen because okay, we can maybe have the self-driving cars, but we have to worry. Not everybody work at university like you. And I don't have this kind of problems on my mind. I have other problems on my mind. I have problems. My girlfriend want yellow wall. I want red,
Yeah.
It's life and death. It's life and death. It's not about do we going to solve like human diseases in Africa through neural networks. So what I'm saying...
We don't want neural networks. We only want neural networks to help us with stuff that might help us, right? You don't want them to choose the color of your wall.
Yeah, but what I'm saying, it's some things in universities are very, very far away from the things in life, and this is problem. You shouldn't take this kind of theoretical approach when you have a human to decide did he want to die or to live because he used less safe space or more safe space. You just design it so that he didn't have a choice, that it's so safe all the time. But before this going to happen, there is a lot of problems we have to solve, and this problem is not solvable by any algorithm, and it's very likely it's not going to be solved by algorithm because you cannot algorithm everything, even if you have infinite computer power. I'm not going to argue on mathematics of this. I just think it's right. I might be wrong. I'm okay with being wrong. The only problem I have is that computer is not okay with being wrong, and that you shouldn't trust too much in prediction of this, even if you have superior data. Data is data, life is life. For me, it's very two different things. For example, I might have a negative paycheck today, but I know that this negative paycheck didn't affect me because I have a stash of $1 million in my mattresses. Now, analysts in the university might think I'm completely, screwed, bankrupt, kaput. He might predict that I'm going to, need a bigger loan from the bank. And the way I see how algorithms work today, all the predictions are bullshit. I go to Amazon to see what books it suggests to me. It's all bullshit. I'm not going to read this crap. I go to Tidal, I have Tidal account. All the predictions for the music they have, I'm not going to listen to this.
But I agree completely with that. But the only thing I'm saying concerning that is that it's theoretically not unthinkable to have the perfect music recommendation system.
Yeah, but that's no point of listening to it. It's already perfect. You just skim the track list. I mean, the point of music for me is that you don't really have a stable relationship to it. For me, I don't know. I mean, you Outtaker fan, you probably too. It's like you don't want to know how is it how's it going to go. You just want to kind of be
You want to experience
inside it. Yeah, inside. It's a very human experience. It's not going to be algorithmically. I mean, it can. Okay. For example, it can. Then there is no there should be something else. I mean, I believe there is always going to be something else. This is why I'm trying to ask you. You think about what you are doing outside of boundaries of your own specialization, and
I think in a way, I think I have a problem with music nowadays. I think of what music could be if you look at it from a probabilistic sort of sense. So now you have a very deterministic view of music. So you could take any track, you can play it once, and that track will play the same if you play it twice, right?
Yeah, but you're not going to hear it at the same time. The first time you hear it, you're not going to hear it second time the same way.
No, you're going to experience it differently. So that's one thing. So the way that the user interacts with the music is going to change. But one of the things that is weird that doesn't change is why can we not make music that is organic by itself? Like if you assume that everything in life is probabilistic, so that everything is sampled from some distribution, and for this to make it very concrete, you could always say the kick drum is always the same, right? But if you say that the kick drum is probabilistic, and it will hit 99% of the time, it will hit that note, and 1% of the time it will shift a little bit or do something slightly different, then and every time you run a permutation of that, your track will always be slightly different. I think some people working on generative music already do this. So I think Brian Eno a while ago made an album that was an app essentially, and that every time you played it, it generated new music. But the problem I have with that is that these people look at it. That's a first good step, but they use the wrong sort of sampling. They use the wrong sort of way of generating it. In a sense that the music becomes too random.
It sounds very shallow. I mean, it's okay record. Reflections is okay record, but it's not like it's a huge advancement on listening experience to anything.
Imagine what's your favorite Aphex track? What's one of your favorite Aphex tracks?
Sorry, let me ask you a question. What do you want? 1,000 musicians that you like, or you want 1,000 neural networks that you like? I mean, it's very stupid to choose neural networks over musicians. I mean, I think so.
I think musicians could use neural networks. I think musicians could. You could take any Altaker track.
But maybe your mind already neural network. It's already neural network. you got two levels of complexity. You don't want two forks to eat one meal. You need one fork to eat it. You just, I mean, maybe some meal you need two forks, but it's by design.
But I
It's
think
not
I'm not saying
necessity.
that I'm not saying that the music needs to be generated by the neural network completely. What I'm saying is that if musicians would generate music in a way that is not deterministic, so let's say you take any Altaker track and you 90% of the time that you listen to it, it will sound roughly the same. But on the odd occasion that you put it on, maybe some bass line will shift
Yeah, but
randomly.
you don't compose music, right? You're not you composer, or you just
Yeah,
thinking.
well, I play around, so I'm not
So
professionally a composer. But
yeah, do you want me? Okay, say you have an album, you have a track, you have a kick drum there. Do you want me to listen to it the way you make it, or do you want me to listen to it every time when there's going to be it's going to collapse? I mean, if you
I make them.
change, you can change the small element in this very complex. It's going to collapse. I mean, it's not going to. It's going to sound like. I'm sorry. It's going to sound really like. Uh, I mean,
Yeah,
I'm not
but
against
it's
generic.
going to sound badly because people are using the wrong algorithms. Like
No,
you
because
can
it's
you can
particular. When you hear it particular way, it's only works because all the elements are in touch with each other. Once you detach one element, that's the problem with computer peoples. Like you think you can theoretically map elements that is needed, and you think you can interchange them. Now the price of this risk that it's your prediction, you can have 100% sure that your prediction about milk distribution in Paris going to be right for the year 2030. But even if you have 100% sure, even then still you have a risk of not going to make it to, to to your actual realization. And this risk is, you kind of make an agent out of computer to take out risk out of human interaction, but you create bigger risk, in my opinion. For example, what if you have some terminal illness? Now you have a computer that is going to say to you, you need to take these drugs to survive for the next 5 years, and you have some very neurologists that say this prediction is not right, you have to take aspirin or whatever. What are you going to do? You're going to stick with your computer recommendation? Maybe you can, but I think much more, I would not going to stick with computer, even if it HAL 9000 from the Space Odyssey of Kubrick films. I'm not going to trust it.
I think
It's just,
if the computer has a track record of being more right than the doctor, I would choose the computer.
yeah, but still, you cannot hold accountable computer for the decision. If computer is wrong, it's only engineer who built the computer is wrong, but engineer far away go. But if you have a doctor, okay, doctor can have a moral consequences, but let's not say about the moral consequences. He might be bad person, he might, but he have a financial interest as well. I mean, he have a reputational risks as well. If he's saying something and he is saying, I mean, if not like he's saying, oh, I'm not sure, you probably have trust computer. Okay, then you trust computer. But if he's saying to you, this is wrong, you have to take this, it's I mean, if you are a computer scientist, you go with computer because it's your philosophy, you trust it. But if you're not a computer scientist, it's not going to be like this. And there is always going to be imperfect data. So my point is that it's not going to happen. You have an algorithm that can solve these problems, that you're going to, try to save the world with computers.
It's already
Computers.
happening. It's already happening. You're too late.
Where? Where? But how? Who did it? I mean, I have no idea. I never.
We have the
What type of?
craziest things right now. So
But
IBM
what
got.
types of?
Sorry.
Yeah. Okay. Continue. I'm sorry. You continue.
Yeah, this is already happening. So this is already, you already see the start of the clinical decision algorithms being used in clinics. So to interpret X-ray photos or to interpret ocular scans and stuff like that. So this is already happening right now. So, and
Yeah,
even
but
the experts already prefer using
saw
these.
it's something that prediction models that was already successful, that was better now. For example, I mean, I can give you we use in Moscow cameras that cars, if car have a speed limit, you get a check, you go to so you don't need an analyst that go through the photos of the cars. You just have automated system. I imagine this one is okay, but it's like, I'm sure it's still very imperfect. I'm not sure what is the rate of the error there, but I'm sure there is some rate of the error, and there is some like struggle with it still.
But I'm pretty sure that before they installed the system, they probably checked the performance of the system compared to the human operator, and they probably showed that the system is much better at it than the human operator on average.
Of course, human operator, like some things you can exchange with the machine and you can be very okay with it in the long run. There is no question about it. I will be happy if machine won't going to change my radio show. I mean, I'm going to listen to it, very funny. But some things in life, they're not going to be changed for the machine in any scenario.
That's a good thing as well. Huh? So like some things you probably don't want it.
It's good thing as well. We're not going out of business soon, but it's also the problem with the generalization of the problem solving in your field, I think, because you cannot really ultimately operate on data. It's you can with data you can do only so much. We have unlimited data now about the knowledge. I'm not sure rate of knowledge is going up because of this. And the same is about the optimal strategies. Optimal strategies, we don't choose optimal strategies in life. We choose our own, like my way. I'm not an optimal strategy in my life. If I would be optimal strategy, I would be in another place. But even because I'm not choosing it, I feel the good energy inside myself because of this. So this is just my.
I completely agree. I completely agree with that. So I don't think humans are made to strive for like some sort of optimal efficiency or anything. I think we strive to please our brains essentially. So we try to do pleasant things or be in pleasant situations, or stuff that maybe not pleasant but stimulates us in some way. And that is not always achieved by having the most efficient strategy, right?
But you don't believe in God or anything like that? You think it's all inside your brain, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So if it's all inside of your brain, is it possible like extract your brain and put it in, like they have in the films, they feel like the formaldehyde box with the wires attached to it, and you can live like thousands of millions of years?
I don't think you probably need even to do that. You probably just need to have a good enough understanding of how the brain works, and then you just need to simulate in silico the system. So you don't need a physical brain in a jar doing stuff and giving it inputs. You just need to simulate every connection and exactly how that works. And we're not there yet, so we're definitely not there yet. So that we're still quite a bit far away from that yet. But it's theoretically not unthinkable that you would be able to do that once you understand the system. But the problem there is, so one of the problems there is that how much of everything is stochastic in a sense, right? So how much do you think something because there is some random firing, like you have some stochastic effect on your neurons, there is some quantum mechanical effect at the atomic level that for some reason at some point in time some neuron fires an electric potential, and therefore that sets in motion a set of events that lead you to do something specific, like I don't know, you want to eat some ice cream or whatever. Like so those quantum mechanical effects are difficult to simulate right now.
I worked at university I worked at philosophical branch of the Russian university in Plato studies branch, and even with my limited amount of understanding of the ancient philosophy, it's nowhere that mind is the brain is the same things. It's just not. It's not there. You don't, like, if I use your vocabulary, I would say you didn't have enough data to prove that it's all inside the brain in the basis of like what we have already know about human nature in general.
Well, it's your specific brain in its specific quantum state, well, in the quantum state of all its components, within a universe which is also shared by the same quantum wave function, essentially. That's how I think of it. So my philosophy is that even if you would map the brain completely to the machine and you would simulate it, because you're in a sort of different quantum mechanical version of reality, it will not be the same.
Yeah, right. You're going to be somewhere else by the point you will be able to simulate it. But do you think we live in this process already? Like, do you think it's already kind of
I think the arguments. So if you read Nick Bostrom, the simulation argument, it's probabilistically more likely that we live in a simulation than we don't live in a simulation.
And this is the problem with this probabilistic approach, is because everything can be very probabilistically probable, but if you are very thirsty, you're not going to believe you live in the simulation, so you just take it easy. You're going to smash it.
But who says
before?
But that's a wrong. So a lot of people think that if you live in the simulation, you're somehow less worthy than if you would be in the universe of physical reality where there is no simulation, right? However, living in the simulation does not mean that you lose meaning, right? You could find meaning within the simulation.
Yeah, but first you have to know that you are in a simulation.
Why? Why does it even matter that, like, I don't think the question matters if you know or if you don't know that you live in a simulation.
I think it's very important to know for sure before you decide what is you going to do. If the data, I mean, I'm all about the risk, and you don't take risk. You don't take drugs if you see that drugs going to be bad for you. So you don't take decision if you have. I mean, you can take drugs. Okay, sometimes people take drugs. They know it's bad for them. They do it. Stupid people exist. But you try to. I mean, you want to not do something that will have a negative effect on you. So I don't believe nothing. I believe in God, but I don't believe that it is encapsulated in my existence. So what I'm trying to say is that all my understanding, whatever it is, on Monday I can believe I'm living simulation. On Tuesday I have a coffee, I believe I live inside the book. On Friday I go to the nightclub, I believe I'm God or whatever. For me, it all doesn't matter. I don't take it personal. I just take it as it is in the today. I plan for today. So my philosophy is I try to survive as long as possible and be as safe as possible. So I need a roof, I need the clothing, I need interesting people like you. It's very important for me to have a conversation.
But how does that change for you if you're in the simulation or if you're not in the simulation?
I just the problem with this simulation idea, it's just it doesn't make any sense to me, because all the idea about simulation is all about some kind of how you say proxy of reality. I don't see the idea of proxy to reality as very exciting. I think it's only intellectually for me. It's not I cannot grasp the how do you say importance of it. For me, if it's all through the proxy, it doesn't worth it. I mean, you can find the meaning in proxy, of course, but why would you start in the first place with the assumption that you work through some kind of proxy? All my understanding of it is when people don't want to be held accountable, they're going to create some proxy. For example, you cheated on your wife, or you didn't milk your cow, it's die, whatever analogy. You're going to say, it's not me, it's John, because John was supposed to fix it for me, but he didn't fix. Now, if you're going to fuck up your medical system, because you have an algorithm that predicted that you can cure coronavirus with vitamin A, but actually it's vitamin C, and you have computational error somewhere on the way, you're going to say, okay, it's not my fault, it's just algorithm wasn't perfect enough. And so, going back to simulation, if I'm going to screw up something in my life, I'm going to say, is a simulation. I didn't have a full control over my abilities, or it's not like a product of my action. And so, but I'm not only thinking about the negative outcome of this idea that we live in simulation. I mean, I think this idea is very interesting, and Elon Musk talk about it. Maybe it's true, we live in simulation. But everything I do in life, you cannot prove to me like we are not in the simulation, because when I have creative action, and I'm not an artist, I'm not composing music, I'm not doing nothing like an artist. I'm a business person. I'm making deals. I sell. I buy for $100. I sell for 10,000. I live on the commission. But when I read a book about Mike Tyson, I don't feel it's a simulation world we are living in. I just read a book, and it's like in my mind it's the world of how you say, it's something not you cannot, like, I don't know, man. It doesn't feel for me to be like I
But
don't
if the
know.
simulation is well made, you wouldn't see the difference, I think.
Yeah, of course. But also, if there is no simulation, you can prove there is simulation all day, and you still will not be able to like
Yeah,
find out if.
you will never know that
Yeah,
you will
of course.
never know.
It started long before. Look, the tale is that Platonic idea. We are living in the darkness, and we are seeing shadow of reality. All this blah blah blah. And then you have a Matrix movie, and now you have like giants like Google, Apple, who are wanted to be simulation, of course, because that's their field. But it's like, I like Chinese tea, man, but it's going to be insulting for me to come to your house, or me inviting you, and I'm going to feed you against your will some perfect Chinese tea. It's going to be rubbish for you because you don't want it. You maybe want coffee, you maybe want water, vodka, wine, whatever, beer. So it's like, it's for me it's just the same. I don't respect the philosophy that is, and for me essentially what you are doing is philosophy, because all your ideas are more in the field of possibility, and in the field of how universe work. You figure out how universe
there is a huge probabilistic logical stretch to philosophy as well that deals with this. But yeah, I think it's all in the interface of that. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's okay. We disagree. It's very cool. It's very interesting what you're doing, but still, I mean, everything else is interesting as well.
I think
And
even if you like, even if you would agree, which is not, it's not a requirement. I think you can believe, you can view the world as however you want to look at it.
yeah, but okay,
even,
let's be honest. If you can affect me to, if you have some power over me, for example, you would be interested that I would be agreeing with you, right? You don't like that idea that I am some kind of like anarchic particle in your world that is not going according to your trajectory, right? You would like me to be like controllable, right?
No, I want people to. I don't want people to be slaves to the algorithm. I want people
Yeah.
to use the algorithm if they want to. Like it's a tool. I want to give everyone a hammer. Like that's what I
So
want.
what algorithms do you use? Like what algorithms you use on daily basis? So tell me something interesting that, we can, besides Amazon suggestion system, we know this, it's fine, but it's not cosmic, it's nothing too spectacular. I mean, tell me some algorithms today, I mean, or some program, some computer things that you think is very good for, I mean, people can use or whatever. I mean,
I think we're one of the largest breakthroughs in the last 10 years have been mostly in computer vision, perception, mostly perception.
Is it like augmented reality thing?
It's the interpretation of it's interpretation of images essentially, or either photos or videos, or also like sound and stuff like that. So like how we can model our perception essentially. We're not reasoning yet, so we're not taking that perception and doing reasoning on it. So it's not that you can learn. I think one of your main critiques is that we are not building knowledge. We're essentially just doing these sort of perception problems.
For me, everything that is theoretically created in universities is not future proof, and so I just don't like that you are very sure that your approach is the right one. I mean, I cannot even say to my mother.
I don't say that our current approach. I'm not saying that the current approaches are right or anything.
Yeah. It just sounds.
I'm saying that we're building towards that. Theoretically, there is no reason to believe that our solutions will not reach a point of optimal efficiency in that sense.
Yeah, maybe. I mean, but I'm working on some things too, and maybe